Have you ever wondered how a nation's stability can suddenly crumble, descending into chaos, and what the implications are for its people and the world at large? This is not just a theoretical question, but rather a harsh reality that recently unfolded in Bangladesh. In the summer of 2024, a spark ignited that would set the nation ablaze. University students, the future of the nation, took to the streets not in celebration but in protest. Their demand? Reforms in the public sector, job quota system. What started as a peaceful demonstration of democratic rights soon took a turn for the worse. As days turned into weeks, the unrest intensified. Peaceful protests turned into violent clashes. The cries of the young generation were met with resistance, culminating in a Supreme Court ruling that went against the protesters' demands. A ruling that instead of extinguishing the fire, poured fuel on it. But the story doesn't end there. The army, the guardians of the nation, found themselves at a crossroads. In a twist of events, they sided with the protesters. This unexpected alliance resulted in further violence and casualties. The nation watched, shocked and helpless, as the situation spiraled out of control. In the midst of this chaos, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina found herself under mounting pressure. The escalating protests, the growing discontent, and the pressure from within and outside her party all led to a decision that would mark a significant political shift in Bangladesh. After 15 years in power, she resigned and fled the country. The culmination of these events led to Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's resignation, marking a significant political shift in Bangladesh. This was more than a political crisis. It was a nation in turmoil, a people in distress, and a world watching, waiting to see what would happen next. When a nation is in crisis, the ripples are felt far beyond its borders. But how exactly has this political turmoil impacted Bangladesh's economy? Let's delve into the economic repercussions of the recent upheaval in Bangladesh. The ongoing political turmoil has dealt a significant blow to the country's economy, with staggering losses in the billions of dollars. This economic strain is particularly pronounced in certain sectors, such as the garment industry. Bangladesh, known as the world's second largest clothes exporter, has seen its factories hit hard, with production lines halted and orders cancelled. But the impact doesn't end there. This economic downturn threatens the future of the country's young population. With the unrest causing disruptions in the supply chain and shaking investor confidence, the economic growth potential of Bangladesh is at risk. The young generation, who should be at the forefront of driving the country's growth, now faces an uncertain future. The crisis has also exposed deep-seated economic inequalities in the nation. The very protests that ignited the political turmoil were driven by demands for reforms in the public sector job quota system, reflecting the widespread dissatisfaction with the economic status quo. On top of the immediate economic losses, the unrest has also jeopardized Bangladesh's reputation as a stable and attractive destination for foreign investment. The country's economic health is not merely a matter of domestic concern, but it also holds implications for international partners who are now closely monitoring the situation. Stepping into this economic maelstrom is the interim government, led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus. Tasked with the immense responsibility of steering the nation through these troubled waters, the interim government's priority is to restore law and order, followed by addressing the economic stresses driving the protests. The road to recovery will be challenging, but the stakes couldn't be higher. The future of Bangladesh's economy hangs in the balance as the country grapples with this crisis. The interim government, led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, now faces the daunting task of restoring stability and addressing economic inequalities. The question now is, what lies ahead for Bangladesh, and how will this turmoil shape its future? In the wake of the recent political upheaval and the sudden departure of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh finds itself on uncertain ground. Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus has stepped in to lead an interim government tasked with the monumental responsibility of restoring stability and addressing economic inequalities. Their priorities are clear. First and foremost, they must restore law and order. The unrest has already caused billions of dollars in losses, particularly impacting businesses like garment factories that form the backbone of the nation's economy. The young population and economic growth potential of Bangladesh are at risk, and the government must act swiftly to prevent further damage. Next on the agenda is addressing the economic stresses that initially drove the protests. The public sector job quota system needs reform, and the people's demands cannot be ignored any longer. But Bangladesh is not facing these challenges alone. International partners, including India, are closely monitoring the situation. They understand the potential implications of this unrest, not just for Bangladesh, but for the global economy. Supply chain disruptions and a loss of investor confidence could have far-reaching effects. There is a shared hope for a swift resolution to avoid further unrest and economic instability. The world is acutely aware of the resilience of the Bangladeshi people, and there is optimism that the country will navigate its way through this difficult period. As we look to the future, the path is not easy, but Bangladesh has demonstrated time and again its ability to overcome adversity. The nation's young population is its greatest asset, filled with potential and ambition. They are the driving force that can propel the country forward towards stability and growth. But for now, the focus remains on the immediate challenges. The interim government must balance the need for stability with the call for reform, and the world watches on, hoping for a peaceful resolution. As Bangladesh grapples with its current reality, the world watches closely, hoping for stability and progress in this resilient nation.